brothers and sisters. This is Dave once again from the Wolves Den here in a hole in the ground in Nevada, saying welcome to Wolf Spirit Radio and welcome to Abstract Illusion Radio with Jennifer Hillman and her guest for today, Michael Cupo. Go ahead, Jennifer, you have it.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dave. And good morning, Michael. Today we are talking to Michael, he has written a book about his experience with addictions and getting over the patterns. And the name of his book is Only Monday in Your Mind. And it is a beautiful book. I highly recommend it. And Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm well. Thank you very much, Jennifer.
Now, tell us a little bit about your book and a little bit about how you got to be in the space to, inspire you to write this book.
Well, it seems that there was always a void in my life, and I could never connect with people, on a deep level. I mean, I use the example, like I was always the sixth man on the basketball team, and I didn't know how to be a team player. And this void, once I became older, I filled it with behavior issues as I was young, and as I got older, it started to be filled with optics. And as I entered high school and alcohol and other substances became more accessible, I started filling this void with those things, and never really understanding, what it was, or just thinking that this is the way it was. I grew up in a neighborhood where people say sometimes that they come from dysfunctional families, and I don't mean it against the city, but I grew up in Newark, and it was like almost a dysfunctional neighborhood. to the point where there was on every corner there was a different thing that you couldn't do. And it really, my upbringing, it was influenced by the neighborhood, but I don't blame anything for my upbringing or for what happened to me. It's just the way, just the way society is, just the way things are, So, and what happened is as I got older and I became more conditioned to use things, objects, whatever, people, whatever I could to satisfy this void. And what I've come to understand now is that this void is based in self-centeredness, and really what it is to me is it's the absence of God, the absence of love in my life. Not the love that I was given, because I came from a beautiful family. My mother and father loved me. They gave me everything that they could possibly do for me and all the opportunities, but it was my love in return. I didn't know how to do that. And this absence of love is what I have come to understand as really the core deficiency of many of our behaviors, if not all of our behavior issues in this world. Because if you think about it, Jennifer, if we had love as the base of our being, where would there be any problems?
Exactly. But don't you think in society they kind of do their best to kind of convert that love into fear?
Oh,
I mean, a lot of society really, when we come in, we have this innocence. And then slowly through society, it is changed and manipulated into fear and not understanding, more trusting love.
Right. I mean, that's it. Well, I'm sorry.
No. I think that a lot of people, when they first come in, the innocence of a child, they know exactly what's truth, what is real, and that's love, and the wonderment and understanding that everything is provided for them and to them, and yet through society's programming and the way that we are told the way we're supposed to be, we can't do that, we can't do this, and yet in reality it really holds us back from really being our true self and holding on to that love and sharing that love in many ways, which sets up the patterns and addictions of what's right and what's wrong.
Well, I mean, I think that's why I really think that's why we connect, so much, is because that's the whole basis of what I've come to understand. And I mean, I don't label it as fear, but it is fear. The fear is at the core of all our behavior. But you know what my thing is I went a step further, and this is what has really led to a lot of my, I guess my insights or whatever is that I went why. I went to the whys, and the whys are so important. It's why does a person have this fear? Why does a person, and that's a question I never asked myself. Why did I have to reach out for a substance or an object to begin with? And it's definitely just what you said. It was that loss of innocence. I mean, if you take a person like the Dalai Lama, and I know that when the Chinese, they killed so many monks in Tibetan monks, and when they asked a monk one time, like, well, don't you get angry at the Chinese? And his answer was, why? Because the anger he was never taught anger. So how can you have something that isn't there? So if we were taught from the very beginning how to love, our inner deficiency of that love, that gets replaced with the fear, the anger, the hate, the envy, the jealousy, the greed, all that wouldn't even materialize. I mean, I know that's an idealistic way of looking at it, but that's truth. That is true.
Also, the thing is, I think we are taught love, but it's conditional. I love you if you do X, Y, and Z for me. It's not the unconditional true love of just everything is exactly as it is, like in nature. There is just such a fine balance, and it just absolutely takes care of itself in nature. We really get in our own way in understanding what true love is. Don't you think?
Oh, I agree. I mean, and I'm not questioning you or anything, but is conditional love truly love? I think it's a concept of love. And once you see, because and this is just for me, I mean, this is just what happened to me. I don't practice positive, negative. I don't practice to be a loving being. My practice is quietness. To allow the love, the innate goodness that is in all of us to arise and be the instrument of the universal love, of God, of whatever you want to call it. Because that's where my book arose from. It didn't arise from me, from any kind of aspiration or that to write a book, or from any kind of dream that I had to write a book. From the stillness that I learned that I had to learn that if I wanted to be free, although I didn't know that's what it was at the time. All I wanted was peace in my life. But from that stillness arose the being that I am today, the book and all my writings and all that. It amazes me more than it amazes anybody else. I have two sisters, and they said, I read stuff like, who is this guy? It's pretty funny because it was never who I was. It was never there. But it's not that it wasn't there. It was blocked out by all this conditioning, by all this, from like you said, from when we're born were the essence of purity. And to me, this is what Jesus never got from that state. The Dalai Lama, he was never taught how not to love. So it's their nature. It's the nature of the human existence, except to me, what you said is right. As we become older and older, and the influences, the inner and outside influences of the unconscious world take hold of us, that's what blocks out our ability to love. And that's what we learn. And you know, like in my book, I talk about like being led around like we're a puppet on a string. Depending on your environment, depending on the love in your life, depends on what you emit, what you transmit to people, what you transmit out, you know. And that's why it's very difficult for people in the inner city who you know, they're struggling with life. It says just for, it doesn't even have to be the inner city, but the less love you have in your life, let's put it this way, the more you're going to struggle. You know, because
okay, let's go back a little bit, okay, Michael?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now, where did you start on your journey to get where you are today? Let's go backwards a little bit and explain where you were to get to where you are now, because you have a unique way of releasing patterns in the conditioning, and I want to talk about the way you got where you are. So
okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. All right, from the time that I started using the objects I'll say the addiction, but you know, like to me, the real addiction in society is the addiction to the self. Everybody uses the objects that they're conditioned to use, whether it's alcohol, drugs, food, gambling, success, whatever it is. So whatever object I use, it took hold of me, and that was what I was basing my life on, what I thought I needed to do to be happy. And they're all based in the self-centeredness. So because it was alcohol and drugs, and they're pretty devastating to the point of how they affect your life and the life of others, I was forced to go seek help after, say, from the time I was 17 to the time I was 26, I used some kind of substance in my life. But there was all kinds of chaos in my life. There was always gambling. I didn't know how to have relationships. I used, really, in reality, I used and abused everybody for my self-satisfaction that I basically came in contact with. I thought life was for that reason. So I was forced, actually I lost an older brother, and it forced my parents to do something with me. So once I went away to a rehabilitation center, and I got clean. I got clean off all this stuff. I mean, there was a little bit more of a struggle in there, but it's immaterial. What mattered is now here I am. I surrender. I give up. I can't do this no more. What do you want me to do? So I went to a program, and I followed the program's guidelines, and this is nothing against any programs out there. I'm not even going to name them. But I went to a program, and I developed, still had this outside view of life that now it was about getting my life together. But it was on the outer sense, and this is so important because my life got better. I stayed clean. I got married. You know, I got a good job that I'm still at today. I'm almost 25 years. I had 2 children. I bought a house, cars, vacations, all the stuff that, unfortunately, society tells you this is happiness. This is what you need. The great American dream. Become a productive member of society. And although all this stuff was happening, and on the outside you would have deemed my life a success, I still had that void. That void was still there. Now, I would fill it up with other things, not alcohol and drugs, but gambling, undesirable websites I would visit. You know, I would do things that just were based in the self-centeredness and not conducive to any kind of spiritual growth. Or even though I was in a program, I still had the outside view. And that's the view. So the first time in my life that I lived like that, I wound up in a rehab. And I thought that was the answer, and I was clean now. So now I'm living another kind of life, so I think. But my view never changed. So what happened to me after 18 years, I got addicted to pain medication. And now, although I thought the view was different, I still wound up in a rehab. Well, I didn't wind up in a rehab, but I wound up in an outpatient program. So what happened to me was once I was able to get off the medication, I knew something had to change. And I really didn't know what it was going to be. But I knew something had to change in my life if I was going to not have to go back to using a substance. And what happened was I started reading. I visited this website because I used to put in things in the internet like spiritual bliss and peace and peaceful, whatever I could do, because I knew the answer it was a spiritual answer, but I had no idea what that really meant. So I visited this website, and the name of it was Pure Silence. And this website resonated with me, that the key to happiness was silence, quietness. Now, that was at the intellectual level. I didn't really understand it in my heart. So when I was clean now, this was 5.5 years ago that I started this journey. So I started reading any book I could on spirituality. I started reading, I used to go to this, I still go to it sometimes, this Divine Life Society. It's based in Hinduism. And I started reading a lot and listening to a lot of podcasts from this site called Zencast that was based in Buddhism, and excuse me. And I would listen to a lot of these podcasts, 40-minute teachings, 50-minute teachings, while I was working out in the gym, and I would read a lot, and I would study. I was studying not the Bible per se, but Jesus' teachings, but not like not in the form of the Bible though, but on
I got a question. Did you ever look at the Course of Miracles?
No, I have never.
Okay, I was just curious.
I've heard it. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go on. I just was wondering.
I was going to say I've heard about it. I've heard about it, but what I was doing was, I read the Bible not that I read the Bible, but scriptures years ago. I tried to use that as an answer, maybe if I study the scriptures, maybe I'll find God, But see, the main thing here is I always look for my answers outside myself, even in the form of God. I was looking for that magical being on a cloud somewhere to make me know better. I never looked at the view inward. I never looked at life inward. It was always out there. And what happened was as I started reading this, I started understanding. See, I didn't formally, just to clear up, I didn't formally go to any teachings or read any formal teachings of Jesus. I just used to read maybe the Sermon on the Mount, or some of his just some of his teachings I would read. Not really having any base base from it. I mean, I've heard of the Course of Miracles, but I've never personally used it. And what everything pointed to me was the mind and love. That it was my mind that caused my problems, and it was love that was going to be my answer. So what I understood that from the addiction standpoint, because I knew that when I started using this pain medication again, that I was clean. So what caused that? And then as I look back at my life, I saw how, although the first time I got clean, and my life in the sense got better on a materialistic plane, and I was doing things better, that my behavior never changed. Because the base of my existence never changed. I never had a shift. I was still the same person trying to fill that void. That void will never be filled with anything materialistic, because anything materialistic is fleeting. It's impermanent. It's not
including another person.
Right. It's impossible for it to last. The only thing that and this is how my views started changing, by reading. But something was different, because I was really not looking outside myself. I was looking inward. I started changing. I started understanding what I was reading at a heart level, because I no longer when I started using the pain medication, the second time, my life was exactly the way I wanted. And I still
okay. What was it that made you? Was there a physical ailment that caused you to use the pain meds, and you just kept using them, or what caused you to use the pain meds then that you got hooked on? Well, if your life was exactly as you wanted it.
I say, I use this as an excuse because I went for a gallbladder operation, but I was just dying to use something. I was just waiting. I was just waiting to justify it. And that was really the bottom line. It was just a matter of time. I was like a time bomb ready to explode, and the gallbladder was the fuse. And that's what really, started everything off. But it was immaterial. I was at that point where I might have, I really believe this. If I didn't, I haven't had a drink since 1987, but I really do understand that if it wasn't the gallbladder, a drink probably wasn't too far behind.
Right.
Because that's where I was. I was at the point of despair, really. I didn't know where to turn, so, the drug was there and I used that, But I think like I would have drank very shortly if I didn't have the gallbladder problem. Something would have happened. Something would have happened.
Let me ask you this, and I don't want to get personal or anything, but how was your marriage when you were doing the drugs? Did she realize that you were using again? Did she understand your past and where you've been? Or did you hide your past so she had no clue that this may be an issue?
No, I've been blessed with a woman with a heart of gold. Because she knew my past, and yet she still married me, and she knew in the back of her mind that something like this could possibly happen again. I mean, this is coming from her. This is what she has told me,
Right.
And she didn't know about the medication because it wasn't like it was this devastating I was really using it for maintenance more so. It wasn't like it was this OxyContin stuff. Actually, the stuff I was taking, they consider it a non-narcotic. But they say it's not narcotic, but can be habit forming. I still don't know what that means. But it was like a synthetic pain medication. So it wasn't really like, it wasn't like I was sloppy or miserable. It wasn't really affecting my life. It wasn't really it wasn't changing my behavior. Like, if I was doing heroin, and I don't minimize what I did. I mean, it had me in its grip, and that's the most important thing to understand. Right. But it wasn't like a devastating, something that was going to take me and make me out of control. It wasn't that like it was heroin or anything like that I was sloppy and I had to go into. I was actually getting it from like pharmacies on the internet. Like from Mexican pharmacies and things like that from Canada. But it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't something that was really noticeable. I mean, it was only noticeable when if I tried to stop taking it. But, you know what I mean? Like, it was just a maintenance thing more so than anything else. It wasn't that it really changed my mood or made me happy or sad or sleepy. It was more so just a maintenance, maintenance medication. So she didn't really know it. The hardest thing I had to do, Jennifer, is when I didn't know how to tell her that I was hooked on this stuff, because I knew I was lying to her. Well, because the one time she found it came in the mail and she saw it, so I lied. I mean, that's the nature of of an addict, is to lie. So I told her it was a supplement. It was always so easy for me to lie. It was always so easy to justify what I was doing. And that's not me. That's the conditioning. The conditioning is powerful. The mind patterns that you develop over the course of time and everything are powerful. So what happened was I was looking on the internet. What the thing was, and this is very important, I was trying to do this alone and get off the medication by myself. I couldn't do it. So then my resolve was, okay, I'm going to go through my employees assistance program. And I was getting ready to contact them, and I was looking on the internet for some places to go, possibly to get clean, And I didn't clean. I didn't erase the history. So she was on the internet, and she was looking around, and she saw the history. So she thought I was drinking again. Mm-hmm. So she confronted me, and she confronted me with what she found. And I can't tell you how relieved I was, and I write it in my book just like that. Maybe not word for word, but pretty close. The slew of emotions that overcame me, and I just started crying because I was finally exposed. The years, Jennifer, of living a lie, years of pent up emotions of not truly being free, just came pouring out. And I didn't know whether she was going to stay with me or not. But I knew I had to get clean. I knew I was done. I knew the most important thing with my life was to get off the medication. And what really, it really is truly amazing how one thought can change your whole life. And I'll share this, is that one thought was, as I was passing a wedding one day, a thought came over me. How am I going to be there for my children if I don't get off this medication? At the time, my daughter was 13, my son was 11. At that point, it's probably the first thought I had for anybody else in my life in years. I mean, a true thought for someone else and really thinking of someone else before myself. And from that thought, I said, I'm going to get off this medication. That, I say, is when my journey started. From that thought, it led me on the road to recovery, and it led me to sitting here and talking to you today. It's amazing.
It took you a while. I mean, I know that with addiction, you have to keep on top of what you're doing and you're thinking, and there is a process to get clean. Now, you've mentioned you've been in some programs. What did you take from those programs that you still use now, and what is your process to stay clean now?
Well, what I use, what I have come to understand, and it's the same thing with church. It's the same thing with the rites and rituals of if you practice Buddhism, if you practice, if you're a Roman Catholic, whatever you practice, whatever, the rites and rituals associated with your practice is discipline. It develops discipline. It develops, because what has to change is your conditioning has to change. So most people have a very undisciplined mind. You don't have the ability not to do what your thoughts tell you to do. And, I didn't have, and to me, what happened to me in my whole entire life up to the point where I started changing was I didn't have the knowledge of this. And that's the only reason I suffered. That's the only reason I became an addict. See, my perception of what an addict is I'm not an addict now. I'm not using anything now. It's when I take a drink, a physical allergy comes over me that I can't stop. It's no different than the person who's allergic to a strawberry. If they eat a strawberry, they break out in a rash or whatever. So I understand that, but it has nothing to do with my thinking or my conditioning or anything else that transpired in my life. It was just the object I used. It's no different than any other object that somebody uses. And that was my discovery when I started really understanding what happened to me, is that it was my mind. My conditioning never changed. So although I didn't use alcohol or drugs for so many years, I just used other things. And right. I understood that, right. So it wasn't I didn't have to get rid of the substance. I had to change the conditioned thinking.
So how did you go on?
No, I was going to say, because I was just as miserable as if I was drinking when I was clean and I had a beautiful life. Because the conditioning never changed.
How do you change the conditioning then?
That's what the practice is now. I actually, in my book, I explain what I went through and how, through the practice of to me, this is only what I've experienced, because I am a regular person with a job, a wife, 2 kids, one in college, one, and the sports things with the children and the whole thing, of living a productive life, a good life. I don't have the time to go on, retreats and things like that. So what I have learned to do is just sit and not put emphasis on the positions that I sit in, or I don't get too much involved. And this is not to say anything's wrong with it. This is just my experience. I don't get too much involved in, the chakra energy or this. I just sit. I just sit and develop discipline. And this is what has worked for me, because because my practice, what I say is my practice is a practice of non-judgment. And I don't mean just in people, I mean in situations in life as they arise. Because your judgments, and that's what I watch, this is my practice. My judgments of a situation is just as harmful to me as my judgments of a person. When I judge it as this or that, or I put it in, as I say, I put it in the category of like, dislike, or neutral. And if I like it, I want to bring more, and if I don't like it, I want to push it away. Get it out of get it out of there. And if it's neutral, it doesn't really matter. So even like standing online, that's where so many of my writings come from. I wrote one the other day about, when you're standing online in the supermarket and you feel like how come every time I'm online, the person in front of me makes a problem and it's delayed, I'm the one who always gets delayed, because the subtleness of the conditioned mind patterns are unbelievable. And the program has helped me with their 12 steps. They really have helped me see the true nature of any of my problems was my self-centeredness. That's what the program helped me see. Now, the first time around, I didn't see. Although I knew that of the self-centeredness, I didn't feel it in my heart. I didn't understand about the conditioning. And it's so important. And in my book, I talk about the steps, and I actually reinterpreted them. I don't really talk about the 12 steps of any other program. I reinterpreted them in the context of as step one is getting in touch with what actually is a conditioned mind pattern, and how does it block out love from your life, which they're based in self-centeredness, and that is the true cause of any problem that you have. But that has to be established, and that's what I learned. That is I would say that, because that is the absence, that's what causes the absence of God. So the absence of God, the absence of love, is the cornerstone of my practice. And what, not how to bring that love into my life, but how to remove the conditioning, the conditioned mind pattern that block it. It's beautiful.
It truly is. So, when you were doing this self-discovery, and you figured out that in your case it was selfishness that was the corner, would you say that's the root of your troubles?
Yeah.
I'm not sure your troubles is the right word, but selfishness.
Right, but that's right. It's so much, you say trouble, but my dysfunctional behavior, really. That's what the selfishness, that's what they cause. When you try to fill that void with materialistic things, objects, relationships, whatever it is, there's going to be dysfunction, because what you're trying to fill it with is limited, because it will not last. It's not lasting. Anything, it's not lasting. I don't care what kind of relationship you have. One of you are going to die for one day first, or maybe both of you die at the same time. But the relationship itself is not lasting. If you fill it up with success, nothing is lasting in life. Nothing's permanent. That was a lot of what the Buddhism was teaching me. Nothing's permanent. So if you're basing your life in things, you're basing your life in limits. And limits will never fill that void. That's why you bounce from one thing to another thing and grab a hold. And that's why so many people are searching, because they're filling that void with the wrong things. So it never stays filled for long. But when you fill it with universal love, when you fill it with God's love, that's eternal. That's not an object that you're holding on to. That's the inner view. That's really when my life started changing, when I started understanding that. And it's not holding on to anything. It's not becoming anything. It's not writing a book and making the book about me and now I got to. That's where the book arose from that eternal love. And it's real. It's not like some magical place that you go. I'm as real as they get. There's nothing mystical or magical about me. It's just what I've come to understand. And how, see, and we talked a little bit the other day about where I think the programs missed their mark, where people miss their mark is in the program they think that you got to go to the program and then the program will give you a relationship with God. But what I have found is to have that relationship first, to love God first, and then you let everything arise from that. And it's so different because that changes the whole view. The other view is you're looking for something on the outside to bring you that relationship. You're looking for this fictitious thing up in the cloud somewhere that you think is going to magically make you all better or make your child well. But it's the energy. When you start understanding that, it's a whole different view. But it's not. It's a view of non-attachment. It's a view of freedom to allow life to be what life's going to be. Instead of you thinking and putting it in categories and you thinking, well, if life's this way, well, when my book gets to be a #1 bestseller, then I'll be happy. Or now my purpose is to save people, then I'll be happy. But it isn't a purpose for anything. It's to allow life to take you where your creative energy allows it to be. The talents that you have hidden in you, to allow them to manifest, not in the way that you are going to manufacture them, but the way life manufactures them, the way life works with you. And that's where the quietness comes in. Because when you're quiet and you're not holding on to the things of this world, as Jesus said, be of the world or in the world, not of it. When you're not consumed with all garbage going on, even having this conversation and all that, and just letting it flow instead of, okay, I have an agenda. It's going to be about this. I'm going to talk about that. No, you just in the quietness, you allow whatever flows to flow. And if you make a mistake, you learn from it. You understand the conditioning and all that stuff,
Exactly.
Pretty wild, Go ahead, I'm sorry. I was going to say it's pretty wild.
No. I'm just letting it flow. As I told you in our conversation, I let it flow. I'm not going to edit you. You get on the roll. To me, Spirit's talking through you. It's not my place to interrupt. So with the process of finding that centeredness, that quiet, that stillness, how long did it take you to kind of clean out the cobwebs, shall we say, or the programming or the conditioning? Are you still working on it, or do you feel you've got it?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Like, if somebody would ask me, well, are you enlightened? I wouldn't truly be able to answer that. But my view has changed so much, and it is a process. I had to go through, because the conditioning is so deeply rooted, the self-centeredness is so deeply rooted. What I think what happens to people, see, I had the initial awakening, I guess, 1987, the first time around, when I stopped using, but not knowing the true nature of the conditioning, I was never able to fully grasp it and expand it. It was never able to expand because the conditioning was always in place. So when I came to understand, I did 5 years ago, I understood that 49 years of living a certain way was not going to change overnight. And that it was going to be a process of sometimes 1 step forward, 2 steps back, learning. It was going to be a learning process. But it was, after 3 years, Jennifer, what happened to me was after I was reading a lot of books, whatever I could get my hand on. Every book that you can imagine, but I was going to like this old library and reading old books and this, but whatever it was, I was just reading for 3 years. And then one day, I knew it was time to practice. I mean, I was practicing all this time, trying to sit and all that, but I knew it was time to take my sitting seriously and to just sit. There was no more, see, I don't care, even my book. I don't care what book you write, what book you read. They all say the same thing, basically. They all point to the same basic direction. Inner quietness, inner peace. However people, this is just the way I see it, But that's what I came to understand after like 3 years, There was, I knew it was time to sit. There was no more I was going to learn as far as the conditioning goes. I had to start seeing it. I had to start experiencing. I had to start making it go from the hardest 18 inches ever traveled, from the head to the heart, And I started sitting more and more. And I don't read today too much. I'll read little articles here and there, but my where I learn most of what I write is through the quietness, through the sitting. It's what arises. Because I have such an understanding of the conditioned mind patterns that what would happen is I was living life. So as I was going through life, I would learn my triggers. I would learn about the things that would grab a hold of me and pull me in. My own patterns that were there. Because everybody has to, although to me the basic structure of a mind pattern is all the same throughout for all of us, we all have our own conditioning. So when I started getting in touch with my most glaring self-centered behaviors, and I started sitting in quiet with them, and I started noticing them, slowly, I won't even tell you that they started changing, but slowly I started feeling more peaceful in my life. And this is, what time do we have to stop? Like 5:02?
Yeah. So keep going.
Okay. So what I found was I didn't try to change my behavior. I didn't like some of my behaviors, but I didn't try to suppress it. I understood that from what I read, that you can't suppress it. You have to learn how to be with it. And one of the stories in my book, which it was a beautiful experience, was with my daughter. And I was taking her down the shore to sleep with a friend. And what happened was I had to get up for work. I had to go to work at night, 6 o'clock at night. I had to go to work. So what happened was she forgot her bedding. We were like on exit, or we were like 20 miles from home. So when she told me that, it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. I had my whole day planned. I was going to drop her off. It was going to take me an hour and a half. I was going to be able to take her back, drop her off, come back home, take a nap, and that's how my day was planned. Well, when she said that, the anger that arose in me was unbelievable. But I didn't react. What I said to myself, and I remember this like it was yesterday, what I said to myself, okay. I mean, I don't know if anybody could have probably saw me, they would have thought I was nuts, but I was talking to myself kind of, okay, relax. Okay, what can you do? I can go to the store, I can go buy it, I could just turn around and go home and get it. And when I said that, a calm came over me. Now, this took a second, but I didn't react. And I just told my daughter, okay, Al, her name's Alexa, all right, we'll just turn around, we'll go home, and we'll go get it. And that was so out of character because all my life I was a reactor. No matter what they said, I reacted. If the phone was broke, what I found was I always made it about me. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was we actually talked about it. She was 13, me and my daughter talked about it. But just think of this, Jennifer. Just think of the difference of the dynamics of the energy in that car had I reacted. She would have started crying. Oh my.
There's a good chance that even with the anger that could have come up, it might have caused an accident.
Oh,
you never know.
You don't know what could have happened. You don't have no idea what could happen. But that's the energy that you put out. I mean, that's the world's energy today. The anger. Not everybody, but that's what happens. So I turned around. I got her call. I got the blanket. I drove her home. Like I said, we talked about it. I kissed her goodbye. Now she probably didn't think much of it, because all I did was not react. I didn't yell like a lunatic. So she probably didn't think much of it, And I dropped her off, and when I was coming home, I started crying. The tears of joy. Because I saw that the practice was working. See, I didn't stop myself from getting angry. And this is so valuable. I didn't stop myself from getting angry. All that's happening to me, every writing that I put on Facebook, all my writing, I don't do that. I'm the instrument. All I do is get quiet. All I did was practice quietness. And when the time arose with an anger, with the old mind pattern that was there, for the first time in my life, I didn't react. You cannot stop that reaction with knowledge. It's impossible. It happens in a millisecond. But what it showed me, though, that the practice of sitting, of disciplining my mind was starting to settle. It was starting to settle where the old conditioning didn't have me in the grip like it always had. And why didn't I, and what was the reason behind me not wanting to get angry? I didn't want to hurt my daughter. Love. It is so powerful.
Yes, it really is.
It's new.
Now, do you think you're, and I want to get to the answer to this question after the break, but I'm just curious. You said that your daughter really didn't understand or realize what had happened to you, and you did talk about it later about it. And I'm just curious, do you feel your daughter understands now what a big impact it was for you not to react? Does she understand the value of the lesson to her that you had? And just think about that. And we're going to be back in just a few minutes. I do want to say, if you're liking this program, we are donations. So get on wolfspiritradio.com. Please donate a lot. If you like this, we want to keep things going here. So I do want to thank Dave for all his hard work and effort. He is a beautiful man inside and out, as all the people are at Wolf Spirit Radio. I deeply appreciate them, and I appreciate Michael being on the show today. So we're going to take a break now for about 5 minutes, and then we'll be back with Michael. Hold on. We'll be back.